Yo YouTube, what we saying? So welcome back to the channel. Today we've got something a little different. I'm going to be doing a mixing tutorial today, so I'm going to be showing you how to mix hard rap vocals. So let's just get straight to it. So something I should mention before we get started, obviously I'm recording in a studio which is sound treated and has high quality equipment such as the mic, etc. So if you're recording at home for example, then the mixing process, the steps will still be the same, but just remember everything will still be different and you'll have to tweak it in your own way depending on your mic, the environment, etc. So just keep that in mind. There will be some disadvantages when recording at home or even recording in another studio. Everything is different. Remember, no mix is the same, no mic is the same, and no vocals are the same. So with that being said, let's get straight to it. Okay, cool. So the first thing I want to mention is, of course, if you're recording at home, the vocals are going to be raw. However, in this studio we have a preamp, meaning when the artist is recording, before I even throw any plugin or processing on the vocals are already being ran through a couple of things. So the first thing that's being ran through is a Corrective EQ. It's not doing anything crazy, it's just boosting the highs a little bit just to make sure the vocals are a little more crisp. On top of that, we've got an 1176 compressor. This is just simply boosting the volume and slightly reducing any peaks. And then finally we've got a triptych. Again, this is just doing very light compression, just so the vocals coming through are already sounding nice and clean and professional, meaning when it comes to the mixing process, I don't need to do too much and it makes my job a whole lot easier. So when it comes to mixing, the first thing I like to do is make sure the beat isn't too loud or too quiet. So as you can see, I've just turned it down slightly. As you can see, the wave format's a pretty loud beat. That's pretty simple and straightforward. I'm not going to go too much into depth with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the raw vocals for you with the beat and show you how it sounds.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread.
So as you can tell, the vocals already sound pretty clean, and this is due to the preamp, which I previously mentioned. However, the vocals still need a lot of work, so let's get straight to it. So the first plugin I like to add on vocals is an NS1. Now what this does is it's a noise suppressor. So this is just going to get rid of any background noise. For example, there could be an AC, the PC fan could be making noise, the artist's chain or bracelet could be, rattling, whatever, or also they could be just moving about, so their jacket is making noise. So this is just going to cut that out. So something to note about noise suppression is you do not want to do too much, because this can just straight off the bat really mess the vocals up and make them sound muddy and drowned out. So I'll show you.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release it. My scales could speak, they would never let me free. But these hoes think I'm shallow, but my mind goes deep. If I feel
so these vocals are already pretty clean, so what I'm gonna do is just very slightly, maybe about 1.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed.
So you can't even notice, but it's real subtle. It makes a big difference. As I said, these vocals in particular don't really need it, but every mix is different, as I said. So next thing is an EQ. So the first step with the EQ is I like to do a low cut. I'm sorry, someone's committing crimes, usual in Glasgow. So the first step, let me just wait for these sirens to pass. Alright, cool. So the first step of EQ is to do a low cut and get rid of any of the lower frequencies that we just don't need.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
So a rule of thumb is I always like to go up to 50 Hz, bare minimum, because anything below this is just kind of muddy and rumbly and just should not be in the vocals. So something to note, don't go too far. I don't really tend to go past 100 Hz because then you're kind of thinning out the vocal, and the lower range of a vocal tends to have a lot of the character. So you really don't want to remove too much. As I said, it can thin it out. So a good rule of thumb is to go up to about 50 Hz. Remember, when you're mixing, don't think about numbers or hertz or frequencies. Just listen and see what sounds good. But for me, in this vocal, I'm going to go up to about 50. We're not going to do too much here because we're always going to come back to the EQ later. And once we get to the compression stage, this can sometimes boost bad frequencies or bring them back out. So this is just getting rid of any frequencies at the jump that we don't like. There's always this, in this 180 to 200, even 140-ish region, there's always a lot of rumble. I like to just remove a slight bit of this.
If If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas,
Nothing
they want
crazy,
a
just
penny.
taming it a little bit.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the
However,
phones, but I still hear them
this
rings in my
300 to 400 region can get very messy, so I like to take a decent amount of that out.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones,
Even
but I
this region
still
right
hear
here,
them
you
rings
can
in my
tell
head.
it's a bit
Feds
boxy.
took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release it. My scales could speak, they would never let me free. Bro, these hoes think I'm shallow, but my mind goes deep. If I fuel up this dinger, there's a strap under the seat. Flashbacks and them flats I was serving on
And
repeat.
then also always kind of like to look at this 3500 region, because
If I'm
a lot
alive
of the
and I'm
harsh essence can kind of come from this area. I'm not talking about DS, and we'll come to that later, but just off the get-go, a lot of S's kind of come out of this region, so I like to just remove it a little bit.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
So this is the before and after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings
So as you
in
can
my
tell, it's just a subtle difference, but it really does make a big difference altogether. Also, something to note, when you're mixing, at every stage of this process, you should not be doing too much at any given time. You should only be making subtle adjustments here and there, because if you do too much at one stage, it can mess up the next stage. And I know this might not make too much sense right now, but if you do too much, for example, at the start, right, if you were to remove too many harsh frequencies, after you come back and compress, compression is going to boost some frequencies back out, meaning you're always going to have to come back and EQ again anyway. So there's no point really in the end of the day, you're just wasting time, and you're also going to just ruin the quality of the vocal as you go on throughout the mix. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the first compressor I like to start with is R-Comp. This is just nice and simple. With this, as I said, I'm going to do something subtle. I don't like to do too much. Okay, so with hard rap vocals, I always tend to like to bring the ratio from 3 to 4-ish.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my
Obviously, I
day's
can't
been.
hear anything right now because I need to adjust the threshold. But off the bat, I just like to set it about here, and we'll adjust it as we go. So now we're going to start bringing the threshold down until we hear effect taking place.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
So as you can tell, the more we go down, the more compression it's doing. But if you do too much, it can really drown out the vocal. So as I said, remember, we're making subtle changes every time.
If I'm alive and I'm free,
So we're going to start
then my
again.
day's been blessed. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been
So now it's
blessed. I'm
starting to
off
take
the
effect,
phones,
as you can
but
see
I still
here,
hear them
and you
rings
can also
in my
hear
head.
it.
Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release it. My scales could speak. They
So
would
I'd
never
probably
let.
stop about here, because as I said, I'm not trying to do anything too major, and this is just balancing the vocal out a little bit. Now, a lot of people would mess about the attack and release, but I'm not going to touch that right now, because, as I said, I'm only making a subtle change, and my goal here is just to balance the vocal out. Next, we're still on compression, but this is my favourite compressor, and I always like to use this straight after the R-Comp. So we're going to go for an LA to A. So I'm going to leave the gain as is, and we're just going to increase the peak reduction until we're happy.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on
So
bread.
I'm happy with that.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's. If I'm alive. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I
So
still
as you can
hear
tell,
them
it has increased the volume, and at the same time, it is also reducing the peaks, kind of balancing it out and making it sound a lot more smooth.
If I'm alive and
Now,
I'm
a good
free,
rule of
then.
thumb is to try not to take it past negative 10 decibels.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my
So
peas.
now I'll show you the before and after of compression.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
So that was the before, now I'll show you the after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread.
As you can tell, sounds a lot cleaner. Alright, cool. I'm going to actually add another compressor onto this, as I feel like some peaks are still coming through and I want to balance out just a little bit more. So what I'm going to add is an SSL comp. Now I'm gonna just bring the threshold up slightly.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release in my scales could speak. They would never let me free. Bro, these hoes think I'm shallow, but my mind goes deep. If I fuel up this dinger, there's a strap under the seat. Flashbacks.
Alright, cool. So now I'm gonna play the before and after. I'll play it with no compression at all, then I'll play afterwards.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but
So that's the before.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left.
And that's after. As you can tell, the vocal itself is louder and it's more balanced and consistent. So now the next stage is de-essing. And de-essing is simple, it's in the name. A lot of people always ask, what is de-essing? But that's because in the name, you don't expect it to be that simple. So just going to open a de-esser real quick. Alright, cool. So same as noise suppression, you don't want to do too much as you can really muffle out the vocal. So we're just going to drag it down until we're happy with how it's sounding. And you can also mess about with this frequency right here, just to fine tune the frequency you're targeting, but the default one is okay for most vocals.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release in my scales could speak. They would never let me free. Bro, these hoes think I'm shallow, but my mind goes deep. If I fuel up this dinger, there's a strap under the seat. Flashbacks
That's
and
something clean to me.
As
you can tell, it's really getting rid of the hard.
If you see me speaking on the phone, used to go so hard.
Even like, it's not coming to my mind right now, but other like words or letters that can pop out, like etc. Like it's really just reducing that and making the vocal sound more smooth.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but
So that's it. That's really all de-essing is. Nice and simple. I always like to throw a final de-esser on at the end of the mix, but we'll come to that at the end. So now the next stage of our mix for me is additive EQing. So at the very start of the mix, we done corrective EQing, which was removing frequencies. Now we're going to be bringing some frequencies back in and even boosting the highs. So a nice plugin for this is SSL EQ. Another notable mention is SSL EQ channel strip, but I'm just going to be using this. So first thing I'm going to do is just straight up boost the highs.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release in my scales could speak. They would never let me free. Bro, these whole
As you can tell, it's really boosting and bringing out the higher end presence of the vocal.
if I'm alive and I'm free, if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still.
It gives it a more industry and professional sound. So I'm actually going to reduce certain harsh frequencies in this plugin as well, because after you compress, you tend to bring a lot of the harsher frequencies back out into the mix. So we're just going to tame them real quick.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread.
So I'll play the before and after.
If I'm alive and I'm free.
That was the before, here's the after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear.
As you can tell, it sounds a lot more smooth, so I'm happy with that. So the next thing I like to add is a soothe. I wouldn't really call this a step, this is just something I like to do after I boost the highs, because obviously when you're boosting the highs, you're going to be bringing some of the harshness back out. So I'm going to throw a soothe on this real quick.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
Basically, Soothe is a go-to plugin. It's just going to control any harsh frequencies throughout the vocal.
If I'm alive and I'm
As you
free,
can tell,
then my
it's a lot
day's
smoother
been
now.
blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny.
So I'll play the before and after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I.
As you can tell, it's something a lot smoother now. Yo, what are you saying?
Filming.
Aye, filming. Then I'll be mixing tutorial. Alright, cool. So the next stage of our mix for me is I like to add a multiband compressor. And the reason for this is throughout the song the artist's vocal is going to be changing. His tone's going to be different at different stages. So instead of just throwing an EQ on or another compressor, this could ruin certain parts of the song. So if we throw a multiband compressor on, this can fine tune and control certain frequencies when they're too loud, etc. So cool, so I'll show you what I mean. So
If I'm alive,
for example, there's lower frequency here.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still.
As you can tell, at certain points of the track, it'll be boosted more. There'll be certain points where he's more quiet and certain parts where he's more louder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the range a little bit.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas.
So as you can tell, it's taming the lower end as it's peaking.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my.
So now I'm going to add another one in this middle section.
If I'm alive and
As you
I'm.
can tell, it's like very harsh and boxy.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas.
Now you want to be careful at this stage as well. You don't want to do too much as you can really mess the vocal up.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even really.
As you can see, when he said blown by now, he kind of shouted that, so the midsection really boosted there, but this is helping tame that.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
Now,
If I'm alive and I'm
as you can tell, if I solo this,
if I'm alive and I'm free,
it's
then my
very
day's
harsh.
been blessed.
And
I'm off.
his vocal in particular, there's a lot going on in that range, so I'm going to really control that now.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release him.
So as you can tell already, it's sounding a lot cleaner. So now I'm just going to mess about with the high end a little bit. It doesn't need too much, because I've already used a Soothe for that, but
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running
Even
low
that,
on
I'm
bread.
happy with
Should've blown by now, but I can't even release him. My scales could speak.
so now I'm going to play the before and after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
Now here's the after.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release him. My scales could speak.
As you can tell, it makes a big difference. Alright, cool. So the next stage of our mix for me is saturation or fresh air. Now, I used to use Abbey Road Saturator a lot, but I found this would kind of add a lot of like background noise. I don't know how to explain it, just sort of like noise in the background, so I stopped using that. And honestly, Ryan's the one that put me on it, fresh air. That's what I've been using a lot in all my mixes. So with this, I don't like to do too much, as you can really boost the high end, and we've already boosted the high end a lot, especially with that SSL EQ. So we're just gonna, this high air knob, just push up a little bit.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still
So
hear
I'll show
them
you it
rings in
max
my
out.
head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that
As you
was
can tell,
left.
it's really
Fam, it's
boosting
hard
the
to
high end.
stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release him. My scales could
So we'll leave
speak.
it even a
They
bit
would
here.
never let me free. Bro, these hoes think I'm shallow, but my
Now-
mind goes deep. If I feel
I never tend to mess about with mid-air too much, but sometimes it does need it. So let's see.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running
happy
low on
with-
bread. Should've blown by.
So I'm happy with how that's sounding.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones,
Just
but I
link them
still
to
hear
that.
them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left.
So I'll
Fam,
play
it's
it
hard to
before and
stay
after for
happy
you.
when you're. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
So as you can tell, it brings a lot more presence into the mix. So as you can tell, I've ran out of space on this channel, so we're going to route it to the next one just to get more space. So click down here, route to this track only, and now you can
If
add
I'm
plugins
alive
on this
and
as
I'm
well.
free, then
So the next thing I'm going to add is Smooth Operator. So this is kind of similar to Smooth, as in it's an EQ, and it just helps make the vocals sound more smooth in general. So there's this one preset I like to use. It's actually Ryan that put me on this one again. It's 46, I'm sure. Yeah,
Okay.
this one.
Smooth vocal.
The vocal smooth. Now I'll show you what it sounds like.
On that? I can't even
So there we go. There's a chain.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones.
So I'll show you what it does real quick.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam is hot.
As you can tell, it's really smoothing out the vocals. So now the final thing, as I mentioned earlier, I like to throw another Deesser on at the end just to tame any of the high end, because we have boosted the high end quite a lot on this track. So my go-to for this is our Deesser.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release it. My scales could speak, they would never let me free. If I'm alive and I'm free, if I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been
So I'm
blessed.
happy with
I'm
that
off the
sound.
phones, but I
So
still
I'm
hear
happy
them
with how that
rings in my
sounded.
head.
Remember, you don't want to do too much as you really muffle out the vocal.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones.
Alright, cool. So now that the main mix is done, I'm just going to throw a couple of effects on it real quick, such as delay and reverb. And on this mix, I'm not using parallel compression, but I'll even just explain that real quick. So, same thing as we've done before, we're going to want to route to a new channel, but instead of routing to this track only, we're going to just route to this track. And we're going to turn down the main mix of it a decent amount, and we're going to open up a delay. Alright, cool. So what I'm going to do is on this track, I'm going to put it to a quarter.
If I'm alive and I'm
I'm
free,
going to turn the feedback down a little bit, and even put it on ping pong mode.
if I'm alive.
So now if I turn this back up,
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been
you can tell it's really messy and muddy. So what I'm going to do is just open a Fruity Limiter, blow it, and I'm going to just sidechain it real quick. So what I'm going to do is go on this compression, turn the threshold almost all the way down, knee fully up, ratio fully up, click this box and sidechain. Now the delay's only going to play after the vocal stops.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hit.
As you can tell, it makes a big difference. So we're going to go back to this, and we're going to route to this track, and we're going to add reverb. So it's almost the same thing, just with reverb this time. And go-to plugin for this is Valhalla, can't go wrong with that. Alright, cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is just this low cut, I'm going to bring it up a bit so that the reverb isn't kind of playing off at the low end. And I'm going to turn the pre-delay down a little bit, maybe just about here. I always turn the decay down, as I don't, especially on a rap track like this, you don't really want it to decay too much, so.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I.
As you can tell, it's just really subtle, but it makes a big difference.
If I'm alive,
Just makes the vocal sound a lot more full as well. So that's me done with the effects. Now, as I said, I'm not going to add parallel compression, but I'll just explain it real quick. So it would be the same thing, you would just route to this track, and then what you would do is you'd open up a compressor on here, for example, SSL comp. And you're going to really want to drive this compressor, so bring the threshold down quite a lot.
if I'm alive and I'm free, then my
Bring the
day's
makeup
been
up a lot.
blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head.
Now if I put this full, you'll hear,
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still.
but you don't want to leave it up too high, this can cause a lot of phasing issues and just make it sound messy, so we're just going to bring it down till it sounds nice.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there were. If I'm alive and I'm free. If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones,
So
but
as
I
you can tell,
still
it
hear
just
them
brings the
rings in
vocal
my
out a bit
head.
more and
Feds
helps it
took
stand
all
out
of
in the
my
mix.
peas, there wasn't a penny that was left.
But I'm going to turn it off in this case. Alright, cool, so that brings me to the end of the mix, so now I'm just going to play a before and after. So here's no effects, no plugins.
If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny.
So now with everything back on.
If If I'm alive and I'm free, then my day's been blessed. I'm off the phones, but I still hear them rings in my head. Feds took all of my peas, there wasn't a penny that was left. Fam, it's hard to stay happy when you're running low on bread. Should've blown by now, but I can't even release it. My scales could speak, they would never let me free. Bro, these hoes think I'm shallow, but my mind goes deep. If I fuel up this dinger, there's a strap under the seat. Flash.
So there you have it, there's how to mix vocals like a pro, like me. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe and comment below for more content. So also follow my Instagram, which will be on the screen right now and also in the description. So thank you for watching, I'll see you in the next one.